1, 2, 3.
Hello, welcome to Rock the Cash Bar. I'm Ben Mowbray.
And I'm Dianne Gallagher.
Every week we pick one song and do a deep dive into the lyrics and explain the different ways they've been interpreted.
We will also discuss how the song connected to us on a personal level, focusing on all the embarrassing details.
Glad to have you here. Enjoy the show.
I was patrolling a Pachinko nude noodle model parlor in the nefarious zone, hanging out with insects, underducting. The CIA was on the phone. Such is life. How are you?
I'm good. What you talking about, Ben?
That's from one of my favorite songs.
Yeah.
It's from a favorite song of mine that I owe to you.
A what?
That's from, it's from Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros. That's a song called Mondo Bongo.
Mondo Bongo.
Mondo Bongo, which I absolutely love. It's like it's bongo music and weird. I'm gonna say flamenco guitar, but I'm probably very wrong about that.
Right.
But it feels very Spanish, very Latin American.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where you and I, years ago, this would have been 2005, 2006, in a dark period in my life. You and I were like, it was when iPods first came out, and we're like putting headphones in each other's ears and like, oh, I'm listening to this, I'm listening to that. And I told you that I really, really love The Clash. And you said you have to check out Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros. And I'd never even heard of Joe Strummer. I mean, obviously I'd heard of Joe Strummer, but I didn't know anything about the Mescaleros. So when I got home, I went on to probably LimeWire or something.
Yeah.
Then, and downloaded all the Mescalero stuff I could find. And Mondo Bongo was my absolute favorite song. I just loved it. Just the seediness of this weird English guy kind of strolling around the streets of, who knows, maybe it's Havana, maybe it's Guadalajara, Mexico City, Bogota, God knows what, but he's up to no good.
Yeah.
He's playing weird Japanese gambling games, hanging out with strange nude models.
Yeah.
Doing some work for the CIA. I loved it.
Yeah. What's funny is that I didn't listen to that for very long. Like, you caught me in that phase of listening to that, and then I kind of just left it behind and forgot about it. I totally forgot how much I loved all that. I think what happens, I was kind of seeing a guy who was into it, and then he got me into it, and then I passed it on to you, like an STD, a Joe Strummer STD.
I'm sorry, you've got Strummer. And it's incurable.
And during the same time, that terrible show that the writer of Deadwood started after Deadwood, that John from Cincinnati, the theme song to that was that Johnny Appleseed song. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I've forgotten about that. Yeah. Oh man, that's another like left ways thing for me, because I really do think that John from Cincinnati, David Milch was the guy who created it. Who's one of my favorite characters in entertainment, because he's a genius, but he just speaks with like the most like foul mouth you could possibly imagine. But he's got this weird, like the way that I imagine a New York therapist thinks and acts, but just nothing but awful ththings coming out of his mouth. It's just really like, I wish David Milch was crazy famous, because he'd be a great Saturday Night Live character.
Oh, for real. Yeah. And there's some story. We're going to get off topic, but there's some story behind writing John from Cincinnati. Like he purposely threw it. Like he purposely knew it was bad.
He was so upset about Deadwood, which is great, getting canceled, that he cast basically as many members of the cast of Deadwood as he could in John from Cincinnati, and then just literally started throwing bullshit against the wall. Like HBO would come to him and said, we can't maintain the cost of making Deadwood, so you're going to have to come up with something more cost effective. So he was just like, what about surfers in fucking San Diego then? That make you happy? He's got a fucking drug problem, and maybe he's a goddamn alien and he can fucking levitate or something like that. What do you think? And they went, great, green light.
It was a terrible show.
Really, really was.
With a great opening music from Joe Strummer. So let's get back to The Clash. What song are we doing today, Ben?
Of course we're doing London Calling.
Which my son has been singing all week because I've been playing it, and now Charlie will just be sitting there coloring or putting together a Lego set, and he's like, London calling, a far away down. He doesn't know what he's saying, but it's great.
We need to record that.
I know. I thought about it. Maybe I will and just have it play at the end of this.
London Calling is I wanted to, so you introduced me to Joe Strummer and the Mezcaleros, and they became like my thing, the way that like music can do in your head, where it's like, okay, no, this is the band, this is the music that defines me. It's my little thing that I hadn't heard about, that I picked up from this cool chick that I met at the comedy club. Like I thought that, like you say, like it's the Strummer infection, the STD, right? Like I picked it up, I'd got this thing. So this was a dark time in my life, where like it was 2005 or 6. I'd just come back from getting more or less completely wiped out in Hollywood trying to be a stand-up. And I was back bartending on the weekends and waiting tables during the week and living with my mom and dad and not feeling really good about it. But then I found this music and it made me feel a hell of a lot better. So what I would, this is horrible, but this is the kind of guy I was then. But I, like on Friday and Saturday night, when I'd made a little bit of money, I would treat myself to a night at the Motel 6. Ooh. And I would, very splashy.
Down, fancy pants.
I'd buy like a 6-pack of Budweiser and a bottle of Mad Dog 2020. And I'd just pretend that it wasn't happening for a night, because I had $35 to pocket. Yeah. So as I'm about 3 beers in, kind of through the thin Motel 6 walls, I hear Mondo Bungo. No. And I'm thinking, seriously, and I'm thinking I must be going crazy. Like, there's no way that this is like what's happening. And I'm pressing my ear up to it. I'm like, no, that's definitely it. So it's like what's going on in the next, you never want to know what's going on in the next room of the Motel 6. But I was 25 or 6.
I'm shaking my head vigorously.
No, you don't. So I just kind of went through, and I'm like trying to like peer into the window, and of course the blinds are closed, but I can see the glow from the TV. So I'm like, but this must be, this is coming from the TV? What the hell? So I go back in and I start going through the channels, and it's the Motel 6 in 2005. So there's only 35 of them or whatever. And on HBO, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie movie, is playing. And Mondo Bungo is the opening credits on that song, or on that movie. And it just like, I couldn't have been like, there are many, many broken-hearted men in Motel 6s all over the nation. I would compare weeping with them. I would compare my heartbreak with theirs. It was like it had been taken from me. Like, it's ridiculous to feel that way, because the music that you love is getting shared through different media. So it's fun, but it didn't. Like, I did not take it that way. I was super pissed.
I'm sorry.
My secret love can't be in a Hollywood movie.
Oh. Yeah, I think, it gets upsetting when something you feel like is so privately yours just, gets put on a t-shirt that they now sell at Target, It's wrong.
But that's absolutely the punk rock thing, though, in the end, isn't it? I think every punk is going to have a story like that. And I am no punk. I never had a punk rock phase. I definitely went through a phase where I admired the guys who were deeply into punk, but I never got into it fully myself.
Yeah. I was always mostly new wave, and there was always crossover. Like in high school, the groups that liked The Cure, Depeche Mode, Erasure also kind of veered towards, Skinny Puppy, and then the more my brain's fried, like kind of post-punk industrial music, and that was like the gateway to the harder stuff. And then you're like, all right, I gotta check out these punk bands. And I loved the angst of punk. I love the hard music of punk. I love the screaming and the, rebelling against the machine. Although I wouldn't call Rage Against the Machine a punk band. I don't really know what you call that, just activism rock. But I was more into like the Dead Kennedys and Minor Threat, and just, it's not singing, it's not music, it's screaming. It's screaming anger.
I've always been kind of fascinated by like the real hardcore punk rock guy who'll confess his love of The Cure or Depeche Mode as if it's a dark secret. Like, he'll confess it to me like it's a dark secret, and then I'll just be like, it just proves you're human to me, bro. Bring it in.
Bring it in. Well, it's true. Like Marilyn Manson came out with this, this, I don't know what you classify him as, goth, shock rock, or whatever. He comes so hard, and I love his music. But when he does covers, it's all new wave covers. Like I was like, oh, we like the same music. I see.
Yeah. I really understand that there's the same base emotional thrust to it, right? It's almost like it's like he's borrowing that emotion and then putting his like harder edged feelings on it. It's like he's weaponizing it.
Right, exactly.
That's Marilyn Manson is like Depeche Mode's Archangel Wings. Do you want to get into London Calling?
Yeah, talk about some lyrics that are that work now as well
They're
as it did when he wrote them. Let's get into it.
They are pretty on point for today's culture. London Calling. And again, I'm going to have to apologize. I'm more than likely going to slip into my version of Joe Strummer's accent a couple of times going through this. Sorry if I'm being an insufferable prick. London Calling to the faraway towns. Now war is declared and battle come down. London Calling to the underworld. Come out of the cupboard, you boys and girls. We should probably get this taken care of right off the top. London Calling is the BBC World Service, the British Broadcasting Corporation. During World War II, they would broadcast to their armed forces and to their people all over the world. Right. And obviously the BBC had people all over the world at the English Empire, humbling then it was, had people all over the world. London Calling was like their station identification. It was London Calling. This is, London Calling to Singapore, London Calling to Hong Kong, or wherever they were. So this is established English jargon. Sounds new to us, but be very, very familiar to British radio listeners.
Exactly.
London Calling. Now don't look to us. Phony Beatlemania has bitten the dust. Which I like, because that seems like it's blatantly self-referential. Like this is the Clash in late 1979, early 1980. They're already well established as the vanguard of this punk movement, which even then was beginning to teeter out. So here's Joe Strummer making his big London Calling, where he's saying, hey, no, don't look to us. Yeah. This is like, even though it's happening to me this time, it's still phony Beatlemania. And that's what we're trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the...
Sorry, I read somewhere, there was an observation of how society often turns to pop music to make them feel better about world events, and how the Clash didn't want to become false idols for folks looking for escapism. And they said that's what this phony Beatlemania is also kind of a bite to.
Yeah, it's kind of that it's almost like it's like street level Bono in a way to think of it, like Bono without the religious and without the messianic complex. It's just a straight up like, I'm not going to be a rock star. You're not going to treat me like a rock star, and I'm not going to treat you the way other rock stars have treated you in the past.
Yeah.
Phony Beatlemania has bitten the dust. London Calling. See, we ain't got no swing except for the ring of that truncheon thing. That's a misheard lyric that I've had pretty much my whole life. I thought it was, see, we ain't got no swing except for the rain or that trumped up king, is how I've always thought of that one.
I think I just kind of moved my lips over that part and didn't even come up with a lyric of my own.
The best explanation I could give myself for because I was certain that the lyric was trumped up king. And I just thought that was the Clash's way of kind of sidestepping the Sex Pistols. Like, okay, they'll sing about the Queen. We'll sing about the monarchy as an institution. Like, we'll take it.
Right.
Like, I honestly thought that's the only way. I was driving home in my car one night when I was like 20 listening to this song, and that was the way that I rationalized that and gave myself a big pat on the back for explaining, like, you understand everything, wise man.
You know what, Ben? I think Joe Strummer would have been like, I'm all right with that.
You know what, Ben? I think you're right. We're going to scratch that out. The Ice Age is coming. The sun's zooming in. Meltdown expected. The wheat is growing thin. Engines stop running, but I have no fear because London is drowning and I live by the river.
By the river. Pretty great.
It's impossible not to belt that one out. Yeah. This is obviously a combination of many apocalyptic things that were happening around that time.
Right.
This is the Ice Age is coming, the sun's zooming in. Like, this was around the time, this is like kind of before global warming was settled on our, that's what it is.
It's way before. And like, we are so entrenched in this global warming debate right now that it feels new. And then you go back and this is like 1979. Like they were talking about it back then. They were
Yeah.
really talking about it back then. This is not new.
That's one of the things I've always loved about this song is that little 2-line couplet that the ice age is coming, the sun zooming in. Like both of those things can't possibly be true. But like obviously he's describing like a lot of panic, right? So that like it's almost like the society we live in today, where there are camps of people who believe two completely disparate catastrophes are waiting just around the corner. So
Right.
it's kind of a brilliant way of expressing it.
From what I've read, Joe Strummer explained in 1988 to Melody Maker, I read about 10 news reports a day. I read about 10 news reports in one day calling down a variety of plagues on us. And apparently he was just a news junkie. So I'm really kind of happy that he died because can you imagine him scrolling Twitter and Instagram and all the information that we have been able to come up with immediately into your face since 2002? Like
Joe Strummer would have an all-star band and he'd be touring America relentlessly now.
Or he'd just be in a bunker, like just like Rob Mungle, just yelling at everybody from Facebook all day.
The fuck is going wrong with all of you?
Yeah, I don't know. But being a news junkie and obsessed with every piece of morsel of the news is so detrimental right now more than ever. I mean, poor Joe. He would not be doing well right now.
Can you imagine Joe Strummer and Rage Against the Machine?
That'd be great.
That would be great. I could totally see that. Like in an alternate reality, like I could absolutely, like after 2016, I could totally have seen Joe Strummer and the Rage Against the Machine.
Oh my gosh.
The Rage Against the Machine with Joe Strummer.
He could just kick Zachary out and take the lead, and Tom Morello would play guitar. It would be beautiful. I'd be so into it.
There was a bunch of things like the ice is coming, sun zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is growing thin. So obviously he's worried about some kind of famine. Engines stop running. This is all 3 Mile Island was a nuclear accident in Pennsylvania that happened in March of 79 or 78, I think. It was right around as he was writing this song. There was the fallout from all of that was going on. So
March 79, yeah.
Yeah. So as he's writing it, that's what was sort of on his mind. It was like not just nuclear bombs, which is what before I started looking into it, that's what I thought he was talking about was nuclear destruction or war destruction, because obviously it's London calling. The far like war is declared in the second line of this song. So I always took it as a war song, or what's happening to English youth if they thought that World War III was on its way. But the song's bigger than that. It's bigger, and it's more and less specific and more elusive than that. Because London is drowning and I live by the river. That was because they thought the Thames was going to flood.
Yeah, and what's so funny is that he lived right next to it, but there was a line that I found that people were like, he lived in a high-rise apartment. He would have been okay.
But all of his people would have been flooded out.
Yes. He's not concerned about himself. He's concerned about all of London.
London calling to the imitation zone. Forget it, brother. You can go it alone. Another strange punk rock song or punk rock line to me, because I struggled with it for the longest time. Like London calling to the imitation zone. I looked that up and I couldn't find anything other than London calling for the imitation zone.
I have no clue what that means.
I think he's calling out to the posers, Dianne. He's calling out to people like you and me who don't wear the leather, haven't shaved the head, don't have the tattoos.
Hey, I have shaved a mohawk into my son and my husband, so.
That's just punk rock. Hey, I gave my son a mohawk.
Come on. Like every other fucking suburban white kid right now.
I do think that that's Joe Strummer calling out to the posers, calling out to the ghouls who are going to steal our individuality, despite the fact that we've stolen it from from somebody else, right?
Nothing's original.
Exactly. So forget it, brother. You can go it alone, which is a weird thing because Hey, London Calling to the zombies of death. Quit holding out and draw another breath. I think that's probably, I mean, you can read into that lyrically what you want. Like if you're a zombie, you're already dead. Or if you're
Right.
participating in war, violence, or pestilence, then you're already dead.
Okay.
Stop with that. Draw another breath. Join the rest of us. I think you take it that way. London Calling, and I don't want to shout, but while we were talking, I saw you nodding out. It's just like, hey, I'm yelling at you. I'm giving
Yeah.
you a harangue here. Wake the fuck up.
Listen to me,
London,
motherfucker.
yep. London Calling. See, we ain't got no high except for that one with the yellowy eyes, which I think that has to do with Topper Hedden, the drummer. He had a heroin problem. That's why he got thrown out of the Clash.
Well, and another thing that I read, it might be a subtle reference to Joe Strummer's brush with hepatitis in 1978.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
didn't know he had that.
Yeah. So that's another yellowy eye reference.
You know, that's the only high he gets.
Yeah.
You get that Joe Strummer Hep C. It's a totally different experience when you get your hepatitis C from Joe Strummer.
Mm-hmm.
Into the chorus again, and this one's kind of like just a weird rotation that I really think, like, I mean, I've never played in a band, I don't know, but there's a weird difference between the second chorus and the first chorus that I think only comes from just like they're just playing it, they're feeling it, and he got lost in the lyrics and just kept running with it. But the second chorus is the ice age is coming, the sun's zooming in, engines stop running, the wheat is growing thin, a nuclear error, but I have no fear because London is drowning and I live by the river. So engines running, move up a line, and nuclear error get inserted in there. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he was just like, he's written these lyrics many, many different ways, many different times, and then, well, it works, go with it.
Yeah. Actually, I deleted it from my notes. I didn't know if it was going to be important, but they had this section of like all these lines that he wrote within that that he scrapped, and it was like the US is drowning, blah 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 blah. And so he's probably had so many of these lines and thoughts that I bet live he just said whatever he felt like saying.
Yeah, I read something that told me that when he met with, excuse me, he had this idea for the song and he had the lyrics all set up, but he didn't have the music for it. And apparently he met with Mick Jones and he's just sitting there like excitedly tapping his notebook saying, this is the message that we are broadcasting to the entire world. Come up with the music.
Yeah.
Like, go get that job done. Like, okay. And that's where you get like the big entry. Like it's drums beating. It's
yeah.
It's like, it's just not messing around. And it comes right at the start of the London Calling album. So it's just like straight, it's just announcing like, we've arrived. We know this is good.
Now get this.
Go ahead.
London Calling. Yes, I was there too. And you know what they did? Well, some of it was true. London Calling at the top of the dial. And after all this, won't you give me a smile?
London Calling. I never felt so much alike. I always thought, there's another misunderstood lyric for me. I always thought it was, I never felt so much like, and that was it. Like he was just leaving the thought unfinished. Like I never felt so much like burning it all down, bringing it all together. Like I thought he was leaving it intentionally ambiguous for the longest time. But every lyric that I searched said it's alike.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a way, I think that's better because I guess what he's saying is like in the face of these calamities that he's imagined, he's never felt more like everybody else around him, which I kind of relate to today.
Damn.
Yeah, like every time I see somebody wearing a mask or I see like all you can see is their eyes and everybody's got that little bit of uncertainty. There's always part of it's just like, yeah, all of us, man, every single one of us.
Yeah. I'm reaching kind of a frustrated anger state with people because like I've been taking it pretty serious, and I feel like there's a lot of people I saw took it very serious and then they just got bored and they just wanted to be over it. And I saw, and then people politicized it. And like, of course, that's what fucking Americans do. And then it's almost like you were on the side of the mask or the no mask, or it just got really dumb and ridiculous. And people just started kicking the doors down and almost this feeling of like, well, I'm just going to get it. And I am like, I want nothing to fucking do with it. My father-in-law and my mother, who is going through cancer treatment, are very much involved in my life. And I'm not going to just go out there and fucking get it and give it to them. And I don't want you people doing it either. And now, within the last like few days, Houston is spiking like crazy. Friendswood, there are people on message boards freaking out trying to get tests because the tests are running out. And I'm just sitting here like, this because you didn't fucking stay home. Like, this is your fault. Running around with chickens with your head cut off because you didn't pay attention. Like, I'm mad now.
Yeah, this is it's weird. Like, this is Rudyard Kipling stuff. This is like, if you can keep your head when everybody else is losing theirs, that's how you survive a panic. That's how you succeed in a panic. But people aren't going to understand that, or they refuse to understand that. Like, I wrote something that was like, imagine how awful things are going to get when the no mask people realize that we also expect them to smile with their eyes. Like, it's like, that was the nicest way that I could think of to say, like, not only do we expect you to wear a mask, but we expect you to be happy about it. Like, we expect you to put your best face forward, because it's a pandemic. It's almost like panic, right? Everybody's right on that edge. Like, it's important to lower the temperature and bring everybody back to one in a situation like this. And all I'm seeing from a lot of people is just straight up like, no. Like, I'm tearing my hair out. Like, you can't, like, this is a bad situation, and you can't be the first person to flip out in a bad situation. And I'm saying that as the person who's most obviously freaking out on my quarantine. The two people that I've been living with in quarantine have like, they're looking at me like side-eyed, like, all right, calm down. Maybe take 20 minutes, put the phone down, turn the TV off, go do some breathing exercises. You're getting tense.
Have you guys rotated, like taken turns being the one who's having a bad day, or has it been you mostly through the whole thing?
It's been me entirely through the whole thing. Like, everybody else is handling it a hell of a lot better than I am. And I feel bad about it. I should be more of the steady rock, but no, I get shaken sometimes.
Yeah.
I really, really do.
I'm cyclical. I go through phases. Like, catch me tomorrow and I might be zen again. But today I'm just like, I'm gonna let myself have a day where I'm frustrated with everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Joe Strummer feels like you.
I think so.
He's never felt so much like you.
I like.
I love that line in that closing verse where he says, "Now get this, London Calling," and I was there too. But you know what they said? Well, some of it was true. I think that's really instructive right now too, because there's so much misinformation going around.
Yeah.
Like, the most common complaint that I hear, until you figure out what side of these arguments people are on, is that there's so much misinformation. I don't know who to believe, right? And if you're being honest with yourself, there are things that people who disagree with you are saying that are true.
Right.
I think that's Joe Strummer's big breakthrough in this song is, hey, don't believe everything you hear, but also don't believe everything that you disbelieve. That's a clumsy way to say it. It's like his paranoia is catching up with him. It's almost just like, I didn't think that. It was no way that could possibly be true. And then I found out that it was.
But it's
that
also
can raise your panic level or lower it.
Yeah, it's a balanced mind. You have to know that there's no way that one side has all the correct answers or the other side has all the correct answers. That we're all just swimming in some gray. There's variables everywhere. We're trying to make sense of it. It's the people who refuse to err on the side of caution, to play it safe just in case. That I can't deal with.
Yeah, to care, like just to protect, just to show some level of, I'm willing to protect you. I'm willing to make this small sacrifice for myself. So, all right. We're kind of going off on going off on a wank here, as Joe might say.
You want to talk about his SOS Morse code at the end? I really like how he did that with the guitar.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that, but I was playing. I had London Calling turned up in my bedroom when I was a teenager, and my dad. At the end of that song, I'm sure he must have heard London Calling before, but I don't think it's the sort of thing that he was into. But I remember him telling me, like, yeah, that's definitely the SOS code at the end of that one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to do it with
he was a sailor.
With a guitar. And then when Joe Strummer starts making the seagulls sound, it makes me laugh.
Sorry.
I just really like it.
I remember the first time I bought London Calling, and I probably bought London Calling more than any other album. Like, I bought it on CD, I bought it on iTunes, I bought it on vinyl last year. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Do you do that? Do
yeah,
you have a record player? You play?
I have a record player, but I'm absolutely not a vinyl guy.
Okay.
Like I have a record player because it was a Christmas gift from my family, but they gave me like a bunch of, this is gonna sound awfully hipster, but they gave me some obscure vinyls, but they weren't like music that I maybe, they were like sounds of bullfights and just weird things that people used to make records of. They gave me like these bachelor party comedy albums and things that you just don't see anymore.
I want to
So
hear
like, oh, this is fantastic. Yeah, I'm absolutely into it. But I remember the first time I bought London Calling, I was out of high school. I was in college and I was working as a waiter, and all of my friends had gone away to school, and I kind of felt alone. And it was like I weirdly like allowed myself permission to go buy the Clash album, and I was really nervous about it because it was going to be like life. Like, I'm not a punk. Like, I don't know. Do you remember your first like punk rock show, or your first like underground rock show?
Ooh, let me think to what like my first one was. It was definitely either at the Abyss or Fitzgerald's. And I think it was just like a local band like Billy Goat or uh I didn't see Fugazi live. I don't remember which one. No, I don't. I don't remember the first one.
I remember going to some, like, there's like a pool hall in Pasadena, and I would have been 15 or 16 years old. And I think your husband was definitely at that show, because I think one of the bands that he was associated with back then was opening for the Hates.
Yeah.
And I remember watching. I don't know if it was. Forgive me if I'm getting the band names wrong. It was either Mubar or Mr. Fingerwood, our like high school bands.
Did you say the band name? You got garbled. Say it again.
Yeah, there was a band called Mubar that
Okay.
was. Those guys were friends with Corbin, with your husband, and then another band called Mr. Fingerwood, which was a little like punk, funky, kind of like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They'd probably be really mad at me for making that comparison. But one of those two bands was playing, and so like all the hip kids in our high school were going to this pool hall in Pasadena to go see them play, this live one Friday or Saturday night. And so they're opening for the Hates, so the guy who's like running the show kind of gets up to the microphone to introduce the Hates, and he just goes, "Are you guys ready for the Hates?" And everybody cheered, although I didn't know that if I was ready for the Hates or not. And the guy goes, "You do know who the Hates are, don't you?" And everybody cheered, including me. And then the guy said, "You better fucking know who the Hates are."
Oh, damn.
Who the Hates are. I didn't know. And I just hope nobody would find out. But I just felt like really, like, I don't know. I also don't know what all those insignias on your jackets are about. There's strange symbols and all kinds of stuff I don't understand, but I'm here and I like it.
Did you like the Hates? Christian is the best. He's like a Houston staple.
Yeah, no, I know that now. I started to learn it, that night. Because I think I asked, a friend was just like, I don't really know. Like, I'll catch you up in the car on the way home.
I'll do my research.
Okay. But that's why, like when Joe Strummer says London Calling to the Imitation Zone, there's always part of me that's just like, hang on a second. Like, I've traveled in a couple of different social groups, and for all the talk that punk rockers have about how inclusive they are and how anybody can be punk rock, I don't think I've ever applied to a more exclusive group than punk rock.
No.
Like, they just, if you don't have chapter and verse knowledge of the bands and their lineups, and like, this album came out in 1976 and this didn't come out until March of 1977, so how could that possibly be a seminal moment in punk rock? Like, if you don't know that, then you're not getting past the gatekeepers.
Right. No, it's
Like,
pretty yeah. They are a tight-knit group, and you got to do your goddamn research or you're not getting in.
They will not allow you to. That's why I always thought I never really understood where that came from. This idea that it was a loose and open society of rejects and ne'er-do-wells. And it was like, well, maybe I'm just not rejected. I'm either not rejected enough, or I haven't done enough bad things to be allowed into the punk rock group.
I think
That's
the
what I thought when I
problem
was 15.
is that you had good parents who loved you and a good childhood, and you had no anger issues.
And I've always resented them for it. You guys couldn't have neglected me even a little bit.
And you came from wonderful Canada. You didn't grow up hating the establishment for any reason whatsoever.
we were out in the wild white north. There was no establishment.
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing there. But that's what I remember. Like I remember buying London Calling and being afraid that, like, I remember thinking that, like, as I was nervous as I was bringing it up to the cashier, like, what if he has questions for me? Like, what if he won't let, like, he's only got 3 copies of London Calling. What if he's going to make sure that it only goes into the right hands?
Right.
He's going to be like,
what if he starts talking shop to you about the Hates, or, you know, I don't
yeah,
say the Sex Pistols because he probably would avoid that one. He's going to go deeper and more estranged, and you're going to be like, please don't. Please, if you want to ask me REM questions, I'm here.
yeah. Once again, I'm going to run screaming and crying from a Blockbuster music. It's happened before. Just get used to it.
Yeah.
But I
And
loved it. Like, it wasn't what I was expecting. Like London Calling was kind of what I was expecting. Those first big boom and power chords, and that, like, the rolling drums and that bass line that's going all over the place. Like, London Calling was what I was expecting. But then I think Brand New Cadillac is the second song on that album, and that's an old rockabilly tune.
right.
And I don't know why, but I knew that. I can't. There must have been something, but I was sort of like they're doing covers. I didn't think these guys did covers.
Right. Yeah,
But apparently,
they're in a different vein of punk music. There's so many different types of punk music. And to be honest, I never did buy London Calling. I know, like, all the songs because it was so wildly popular. But I think my thinking at the time was it was just so mainstream and so melodic, and you could sing to it, and it was just good. It was too good to me. It was,
yeah.
the Clash was just too good. And I what's funny is I think even at the time I got into Big Audio Dynamite before I even got into the Clash.
Yep.
The spinoff. But
There's nothing wrong with getting them out of order.
yeah. um but now I appreciate it so much more because I later on I went on to really liking a lot of rockabilly, like a lot. I love Reverend Horton Heat, and I liked Social Distortion, and then I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here, and I kind of got into the Clash a little bit later.
I'm super fascinated by, like, they just don't make new rockabillys anymore. Like, that factory is closed. They've shut it down. You don't see 15, 16-year-old rockabilly kids.
I know. It'll make a comeback. These things are always cyclical. Let's make a bet now. Let's see. It's 2020. I say 2026. Rockabilly's going to come back hard.
And everybody's gonna love, like, the New York garage bands.
Yep.
Like, the Strokes are gonna be the oh, that was the band I loved when I was a kid. I wanted to sound like that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna feel very old when that happens.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, this is the 3rd time I've seen this recycled.
Yeah.
No.
Something's going to happen. And, it's probably going to be my son's generation or something. Like, Charlie's going to grow up listening to me and Corbin listening to Reverend Horton Heat and, maybe Social Distortion, and he's going to like it. And his friends are going to have the same kind of parents, and then it's going to make a comeback. That's how it happens.
Oh, I think I have to confess something to you.
Mm.
I've never liked Social Distortion.
No. Well, but it's because
No.
you're not a female and you didn't know how hot Mike Ness was. I just thought he was hot, and that got me in the door. And then I really liked it.
His snarling voice just seems like such a put on to me. And it also seems to me, it's like, okay, no, you wrote 1 song. Like, I know you think you wrote 30, but it's just one. It's the same thing again and again and again. And it's cool kids music.
True.
And again, I didn't feel like the cool kids wanted me around.
Yeah, I understand that. And a lot of bands are like that. I mean, Minor Threat's the same way. It's, it's a lot of these like really fast 30-second songs over and over and over. I can see it. I just, having like a mother who liked classic country, that it kind of combined 2 things that one thing that I privately liked and one thing that I openly liked. And I liked kind of the country guitar that came through in Social Distortion and the old, when he covered Making Believe. I thought that was really great.
Yeah, when you can grab those, because I'm not a musician, but when you can grab those, just like, oh no, that drum line reminds me of country music, or I think that bass line reminds me of disco. It's like it's like you're taking in these disparate influences. You're starting to see where this comes from. It's like that light cracking into the door, like, oh, I think I get it a little bit.
Yeah.
This ties into this, that ties into that. Music's a great big Rube Goldberg machine.
Yep.
This thing takes over that one. Where does it all come from? I was thinking about like the Clash aren't my favorite band, but this is kind of weird. But and I really mean this honestly. They're my desert island band. Like if I was stranded on a desert island and could only take one band's music with me, I would take the Clash, despite the fact that they're not my favorite band.
Why is that?
Because comes from all over. You know, it's also it's kind of like a negotiation point too. It's like, well, if can I just take Joe Strummer and everything he was involved with? Like I can go grab all the Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros, kind of, you know, with the Spanish influences and the African influences and all that reggae influence and everything like that.
Oh,
I can bring all of that. It's like I'm bringing the whole history of music with me.
That's a good way to look at it. I've always struggled with the desert island band, and because you're going to get sick of any one band, and so you got to think of someone who can bring in a lot of different styles that can take you to different genres of music.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, because I always kind of thought I'd like Erasure just because I love that band a lot, and they're very happy and they have tons of hits that are very, very fun to sing, and I felt like it would keep me happy. But now I'm like, should I go what's his name from Simon and Garfunkel?
Paul Simon.
Paul Simon. I couldn't get Neil Simon out of my mind. Is there a Neil Simon? My brain is mush today.
Neil Simon's a playwright. Your brain's not mush. Your brain is fertile.
Okay. Because Paul Simon is so amazing and can tap into a bunch of different types of music. So now I got to rethink my desert island musician or band.
No, you're on the spot now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Depeche Mode. I just had to go with my favorite band.
That is perfect.
I never wanted to choose Depeche Mode. You don't want to choose your favorite band because then you're going to hate your favorite band because it's the only thing you can listen to.
That's the last thing you want to have happen when you're slowly dying to death on a desert island. No, I loved you guys. I think Combat Rock is, I think, my favorite Clash album, which I think is not the right thing to. I don't think that's the done thing. I think that's me being kind of hipster-y and anti. I don't know what it seemed to me that most people would tell you. Combat Rock was 82 or 83.
Okay.
But Combat Rock is the one that has like their two huge big hits on it. It's got Rock the Casbah and Should I Stay or Should I Go?
Yeah.
But everything else on that album is so incredibly fucking weird. Like you can't even define it. They have a song they have a song called Ghetto Defendant that is it's very Clash like, and it's Joe Strummer's sort of like plaintive wail. But then sort of like a minute into the song, there's this real gravelly voiced poet that comes in and just starts snarling these really, really strange lines at you. Starved in Necropolis, hooked on Metropolis, do the worm. Like it gets really, really bizarre. And I bought that album after I bought London Calling, because London Calling was the one that that's the prime Clash album you have to have, right? I bought Combat Rock after that. And I was playing it in my car on my way from the Olive Garden where I worked to a bar where my cool friend was going to sneak me in. I was 17 years old and he would have been 23 or 24 or something like that. But he knew the bartender there, so there's nothing to worry about. But he also knew all about punk music and all about, like, he was giving me my musical education. And I remember playing that song and him telling me that was Allen Ginsberg, the poet, on that song. And I was like, and that kind of blew my mind, because in high school I'd had like a beat authors phase where, I read everything by Kerouac and Ginsberg, and that was my way to be. I was going to be the smart, insightful guy.
Right.
I was going to make me special.
And
but I remember listening
catch
to
it.
No, like this is a guy. Like I tried to memorize Allen Ginsberg poems like a couple of years before that. I didn't even recognize his voice. It's like how ridiculous this kid could be.
Well, I need to download that album then, because right now in the spotlight mostly you have bands that are going to do what their producers say and try to push out songs that make the most money. And it's really great when you have a band who's like, no, we're going to get creative, we're going to play. We're just gonna play. We're gonna play with some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like we're gonna get experimental. We're gonna
Yeah.
do what we want to do, man. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a song on Combat Rock called Sean Flynn that I absolutely love because it's just crazy ethereal. It's just swirling guitars and weird swirling saxophones. And for the life of me, I could never figure out what it was. But you know, when I bought that album, I was in college, so I went. There was no Google back then, so I just went to the university library, and I'm like literally going through the library cards, like trying to find a reference to Sean Flynn. And it turns out that Sean Flynn is the son of Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn, the movie star,
Wow.
like Robin Hood, like
Yeah.
swashbuckling bar fighting Australian Errol Flynn. His son grew up to be a photojournalist, and he went to Vietnam to photograph the Vietnam War, and he went missing and is presumed dead in the Vietnam War. But it's just like you never would have known that, and like
Holy
even listening to
hell.
the lyrics, you wouldn't know it. But I just remember being just absolutely stuck on it. But you know, um, it's like they filled the sky with a tropical storm, and lo, we heard the drums of war, but each man knows what he's looking for. So it's a crazy way of looking at how how war affects literally everybody. Like even if you're the
Right.
son of a huge big Hollywood star, you can still get rolled up in it because
Wow.
you hear the drums of war. You think you need to go affect the world. You need to go change it, or take part in it, and then it can wrap you in. That's the risk that you take, and that's the sort of thing that Joe Strummer, of course, is always constantly trying to trying to get across.
One thing I love about this podcast is that, it kind of brings me back into music and the class. I mean, I went through my little Joe Strummer phase and then kind of went out of it. And I was never a huge listener of all of the Clash, but now because we're doing this podcast and there's nothing else going on because we're quarantined, I'm going to go dig deep now. And it's exciting. It gives me something to do and something to latch on to.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to check back into the things that you've been missing out on. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of going into, I guess I'm gonna have to do 2 quarantines. Like I did one for about 3 months and then came out and worked for a little bit. But now both places I work at are going to close up again. Nobody's tested positive. It's just too difficult to open up bars and restaurants and
Right.
enforce social distance rules on people. So I'm going into quarantine too, probably for another month, and I'm going to insist that quarantine 2 is better than quarantine 1. You know, that
It's a
I'm
good
going to
way to
do the
look at
things
it.
that I'm going to have to do the things that I should have done a little better that time around.
I'm with
There's a
you, Ben. I need to pull myself out of this funk. I'm getting into a funk about like the second wave and like here we go again, going down hard. And I was like, the first wave, I was like, Dianne, just drink beer every day. Just relax, give yourself some grace. And I think part 2, I'm gonna be like, Dianne, go work out.
yeah,
Eat a
go work
salad.
out, learn an instrument,
Yeah.
write that novel, learn that language, do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay way more focused on it. You can do it. Like that's what I kind of marvel about with Joe Strummer is the way that he's kind of always found me, or I found him at the low points in my life. And it must be like obviously it must be because like I'm seeking out whatever comfort it is that Joe Strummer is whenever I feel stressed. But he's always been there at my lowest points. It's always been Joe that crops up.
I
It's
find
really kind
his
of weird. Like the first
voice.
time I saw this.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I find his voice to be very soothing. Like when he's not
Yeah,
jamming out, when he's just singing, especially that Johnny Appleseed song in the beginning of John from Cincinnati. I always found like his voice to be very soothing.
yeah, he's reassuring. He's confident.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that swagger.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something to him. I remember there's a documentary called "The Future Is Unwritten" that is it was made after Joe Strummer passed, and it focuses almost as much on his life after the Clash as it does on the time that he spent in the Clash. And so it goes through all like the Mezcalero stuff and all the world music things that he did. And I remember I quit a job once when I was 30 or 31. I was working for a real estate firm, a construction firm, and this was like after the 2008 financial crisis. Things weren't going well for us. I was working really, really hard, and I was kind of like stressed out and overreacting and just not enjoying it at all. And I remember like going into my office one day and closing the door and just kind of putting my head in my hands and going, what am I going to do? Where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? And the only thing I could think of was just like what jobs can I get other than this? And I thought I'd really much rather be running a bar right now than trying to do this construction firm. So I went into a meeting and found a reason to lose my shit and resigned in a huff. And I went home, and this was when Netflix was still like mail, like still coming like, or at least to me, via envelopes. I went to my mailbox and I'd ordered The Future Is Unwritten, and I popped that in. And I watched this Joe Strummer story, and it just totally inspired me because he's coming out of The Clash, which was a wonderful thing for him. It could have been the biggest band ever, if they'd been able to overcome their personal differences and musical differences and everything like that. If they were still together, they would be regarded as one of the best bands that have ever lived. And after all that had been destroyed, he just went off and just went, okay, I'm going to do my thing now. I'm going to go be Joe Strummer. I'm going to host, a BBC radio show. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to play music with all of these musicians that I admire everywhere else. And I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live it. I thought that was just absolutely inspiring. So I went to the park and got on a swing set for a while and felt free, even though I was broke and jobless and about to be thrown out of my apartment.
Then you went and applied at a bar. Like,
no.
First step into owning my own bar is I need to go work at one.
I think I took a couple of days out to just get beer drunk in my apartment for a while. That was important to me.
That's a necessary step. You got to do that first. Then you pull yourself up by the back of your neck and be like, okay, go do the thing you got to do now.
You're in a crisis.
I'm loving the story of how Joe Strummer just keeps popping into your life when you need him.
He does, but like I say, I think it's because I seek him when I need him. And maybe that's why I never thought of it. Maybe that's why I would pick him for the desert island. I'm stranded all by myself. I'm gonna want the guy who comes to help me when I need him.
It's amazing. Talking about them being a legendary band is, they were inducted in, or I guess they were inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was already dead by then, and they were going to have Bruce Springsteen. They were wanted them to play, and have Bruce Springsteen be the lead. And long story short, the band decided not to. They said they would rather, they never wanted to do a reunion, and if they did play, they wanted it to be in front of their own punk rock audience, not like the audience that collaborates at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who are there to see all these different people. They don't want to play for them.
Right. So that's why Bruce Springsteen put together that legendary lineup for the Grammys.
For the Grammys, that was incredible. I watched that on YouTube yesterday.
I hadn't seen that in a long, long time. I forgot how amazing it was. So it's Bruce Springsteen, Dave Grohl, Elvis Costello, and little Steven Van Zandt. And they're all playing guitar. They're all doing the big Joe Strummer downstrokes, and they've got it down perfectly. Like they're going line by line, not verse by verse. Like they're sharing the whole thing around. It's just perfect. I mean, it's Bruce Springsteen, obviously American rock god.
Yeah, you guys should look it up. It's 2003 Grammys, correct? I think, and it's a tribute to Joe Strummer, who had died in 2002. And it's very reminiscent of the London Calling video, where it's like all of them, stayed up in the front of the stage, lined up, just jamming away on their guitars, and they do an excellent job. It's really good.
And it's a totally unexpected intro too, because I think I don't know if the Grammys do it the way the Oscars do, but the way I remember it in the clip that I saw is there's like a great big screen. It's a big title card. It's a still picture of Joe Strummer with his
in memory,
like singing on stage, and then it has in memory, like 1952 to 2002 or 2003, and then that sort of slowly comes down, and as that screen is coming down, that's when the drum and the guitars kick in. And you don't know who it's going to be. It comes down, and then it's just Bruce Springsteen going, "This is for Joe," and they're like, "Holy shit, that's Elvis Costello, that's Dave Grohl, that's little Steven. Oh my god!"
And then they're just they're pounding away, and it's really good.
It really is. I don't know. I love Joe Strummer. I really, really like the Clash. I can't pick a favorite Clash song. I mean, I don't know that London Calling is it. Like I go to Sean Flynn, I go to Straight to Hell, Junko Partner, Bank Robber, Charlie Don't Surf is probably I think Charlie Don't Surf might be my favorite Clash song.
Yeah, I was really surprised that the Patreon members, and it's never a landslide on the Patreon. It was won by one vote. I was really thinking they were going to go with Rock the Cast, Bob, because that's our namesake. But I always loved Should I Stay or Should I Go out of those, just because it was fun. But I was secretly hoping they were going to do London Calling, because I think it was my favorite out of the three that we put out.
Mm-hmm. It definitely ties into what we're all doing what you and I are doing right now. I mean, this is Dianne and Ben calling to the faraway towns.
Yes, it is. To our
Declare no panic.
Oh, I meant to write down a list. Like, I've been looking at where people are picking us up. And, we've got like a listener in Bangladesh. We got someone in Ghana. Hopefully they're still listening. They didn't just listen the one time. So hello. Thank you. We have some Australian listeners.
Ooh, I want to go to Australia.
Yeah, me too.
I want to go to Australia really, really badly. Well, that's London Calling by The Clash.
That was wonderful. Thank you guys for voting it in. I had a really great time doing this one.
Hey.
All right.
Do you
hold on.
have a guilty?
Well done. Hold on. We're gonna do Dressed Up Like a Douche first. This one, she told me this a long time ago and I completely missed it. I had to go back and find it. This is from Laura Shenfeld, and it was Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. And I think this might be kind of a common one. It's just a silly one, but she heard, and no mustache could have been any clearer.
Oh man, if we ever do a Michael Jackson song, it should probably be Man in the Mirror.
Yeah?
I mean, no, I think there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah.
Oof.
Oh yeah. I'm talking to the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways.
Oh God. Okay, so my son is obsessed with the cartoon Despicable Me 3, which is fucking hilarious. You guys, people who don't have kids don't get the joy of watching cartoons where Trey Parker is one of the main characters, the guy from South Park, and there's a bad guy in it, and he is so funny because the way they illustrate him being a bad guy, and it's Trey Parker, and they play Bad by Michael Jackson. And my son asked me to play Bad every single day. He's obsessed with it. And listening to I'm bad, you know it, after knowing what we know. And I'm like, yeah, we know, Michael. We know.
Guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasures. Yes, this one's really guilty. I was out at our ranch. It's not our ranch, but Corbin's dad bought a wonderful ranch we've been escaping to every weekend, and it rained like a really, really hard downpour rain, which was so nice because it had been so hot outside. And we were just sitting on this big wraparound porch, and then my brain just went, blame it on the rain. Yeah. Dude, Ben,
it on the stars.
I loved Milli Vanilli. I really loved them. And that song was so good. And it was the voice. It was the guy's voice who was singing, whoever it was. But then, I went back and I was playing it yesterday. And although the melody and the beat of that song is great, the lyrics are really fucking stupid. Like, basically the song is about the guy leaves a girl he's actually still in love with, and then he won't take any personal blame for it, and he's like, you gotta blame it on something. And I guess he looked around and was like, blame it on the rain and that trash can and that lamp.
This is all the Steelings fans' fault.
Yeah, you gotta blame
pleasure.
Oh, sorry, what is your guilty pleasure song?
You Only Get What You Give by the New Radicals. Do you remember that from the late 90s?
Only get what you get. Yes, I do.
Hey, cool kids, you're on the Miracle Mile.
God, I didn't even know
that guy's voice. I don't know if they had another hit.
They sound like someone else. I think I would have tried to guess that a different band sang that song. Who do they sound like?
Everybody from the late 90s sounds pretty similar.
You know who they...
When the night is falling.
You know who he kind of sounds like is the lead singer of James. Kind of.
Oh, he does a little bit. Yeah. We're going to have to do a James song.
I love James. I love Late.
Mm-hmm.
I love,
Mm-hmm.
oh God. Yeah, we're going to do a James song. That's one of,
We,
we're going to eventually dip into more obscure, even though it's not that obscure. They were very popular in the 90s, but you know, I have
yeah.
a group of girlfriends that are like 9 years younger than me and they wouldn't know it, you know.
Mm-hmm. I want to, yeah, we need to either do a James song or we need to go to a karaoke bar and do like a proper big job. Like, I'd like to do Sit Down because that's like it's
Oh,
almost like a
sit
British
down.
pub song.
Oh,
Like
sit down. So good.
waving your pint around. Sit down next to
That
me.
reminds me, it makes me laugh really hard. But remember, I don't know which year it was. It must have been in the early 2000s in the Olympics. Nastia Lukin was a gymnast, and I just
Yep.
remember what you guys would say about her. You can say it. Do you remember what you said about her?
I just remember thinking that her name was like a Lord of the Rings kind of. Like I remember trying to do a joke about it. Where it was just like that. It was the great big warning, like the orcs are coming. It's some like secret medieval code word that's 1,000 years old. There's like just men whispering to each other, just like Nastia Lucan, Nastia Lucan, Nastia Lucan, and then it just spreads throughout the Shire. It's like lighting signal fires.
I just remember sitting in the back room of the laugh stop and you guys were making jokes about her name and somebody was talking about like a big like meaty Viking cheers that you would do with your mugs like Nastia
Yeah,
Lucan.
yes, exactly that.
It was so funny to me.
I'm looking up Nastia Lucan.
Lucan.
Guilty pleasures.
Hey, everybody, surprise witness, bonus content. We're joined by legendary Houstonian Alice Berry. Alice Berry is a teacher, a queen of all things tiki, and an all around wonderful lady. Alice, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Alice, you're here. Well, I kind of want to treat this almost like a courtroom. Would you mind telling the audience where you were and a little bit about the events of June 8th and June 9th, 1981?
81 or 82? Wait.
Might have been 82. You were there. I'm reading it out of the book. I could have it wrong.
So I'm thinking of the Combat Rock having been 82. Maybe it was 81. So we'll actually have to start the story back a little further then to explain to you why the Clash loved Austin so much. When they played the Armadillo on the part of the recordings, which ended up being London Calling. In fact, you may remember a photo on the back. Your listeners can look up the photo on the back that shows that it was photographed at the Armadillo. Nice. And opening for them that night was Joe Ely, with whom they fell in love. They realized how incredibly cool this non-categorizable sound was that Joe Ely had. And Joe at this whole time was considered too rock for the country stations and too country for the rock stations. But the Clash had no problem at all with music simply being good because they loved it. And by the time they then circled back around to Texas, they taken Joe with them on tour. And Europe didn't quite know what to do with him. The punk rockers did not really get this guy because he seemed too country to them, and he wasn't an official punk rocker, and he got not as warmly welcomed as the band had hoped. When they came back around to Texas, they did not yet have an opening act. And so they were there for a couple of days, and they'd already decided at this point that they wanted to film the Rock the Casbah video there. I don't know what it really has to do with, with the Casbah, but it does have oil. And so the entire video, they're bouncing around town with the Hasidic Jew and with the Arab sheikh, and they're tooling around in their giant limo with the longhorns on the front, and they're driving by.
And they're in front of an oil derrick and all that stuff, so it ties in.
Right, yeah, the band is in front of the oil derrick. Yeah, so the whole movie, the whole video is cutting back and forth with the band performing in front of the oil derrick or looking at the airplanes flying over the then Air Force Base, which is now the normal Austin Airport. They're zooming around town. They're at the Sheraton Crest Hotel, which is right next to the Bats, and that's where the band was staying. So they're all lying out on the pool chairs, and the two go bouncing through. So they did not have an opening act, and the nights before the show, they went around town and saw all of the bands that were playing at the time and said, let's just get a band that we see that we love and have them open for us. So my friend Margaret Moser was good friends with Gary Kurfirst, who was their manager, their kind of big manager. Cosmo Vinyl was doing the road tour stuff. So Cosmo was there, but they went around and hit all the different bands. They saw the Killer Bees, I think they were, who were kind of a reggae band. They saw Dan Del Santo, who was sort of an everything music thing. I don't remember who else, but they also saw the Trouble Boys, which was the rockabilly band that I was in. And we were playing at the Continental Club, which was sort of our home base place. And we were rockabilly. We were one of two rockabilly bands in Austin, the Leroy Brothers being the others. The Teddy Boys in Houston, that was all the rockabilly in Texas, and really outside of probably New York at that time in 80 and 81, I think, which is when we were a band, at 82. I guess I'm not sure when we broke up. Anyway, so they'd seen us, but then their management, the big guys, were saying, a little small band, that's probably not quite enough. Now, mind you,
Hang on a second. Am I understanding your story right? Like your band played in front of Joe Strummer and the Clash?
yes. Oh, so you don't know any of this.
No, I haven't heard that part of the story.
Whoa, no, that's not the story. That's how we get to the story. So I had actually camped out for tickets for the first night. The only night in my life I'd ever camped out to see a show. I camped out to get tickets for the Clap. And then they ended up adding on a second show. Okay, fine. But, at least I had my tickets. And I was also enough of a backstage girly, and I was friends with Margaret Moser that actually I was going to be back there at the show no matter what anyway, but I wanted to make sure. So the big management decides, we really can't have one of these little local bands play. We need to get something bigger. And at that point, Stevie Ray Vaughan had just been doing the tour with David and had been really treated, I think, kind of poorly, quite honestly. I think he was getting $200 a night for playing on tour with David Bowie.
Stevie Ray Vaughan was opening for David Bowie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, he's in the band. I think he was playing in the band, but he was playing guitar at the time. In the China Girl video, there's this really great guitar break, and it's actually Stevie Ray Vaughan, but David Bowie is faking it, having like gloves hands and just kind of running up and down the strings. But so he's actually sort of fake playing over the Stevie Ray Vaughan bit there.
Amazing.
So management decides that, okay, let's have Stevie Ray Vaughan open for Clash here in 1982 when punk rock is absolutely smashing through America. And they decide to have a guy who's doing Jimi Hendrix covers open for them. And he's like, okay, yeah, great. He was like, his star was rising nationally. He was already huge in Texas. So that first night, he is getting beer cans thrown at him, full beer cans, full open beer cans. He's getting gobbed. He's getting a whole lot of fingers. It's really, really ugly. People had come in from all over Texas. I had people sleeping on my floors that had come in for this show because they weren't playing in all the major Texas cities. So we have punk rockers from all over Texas and probably beyond. And they want to see punk rock. They don't want to see Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now, mind you, a lot of us love Stevie Ray Vaughan, but this was not appropriate opening for the Clash. The Clash was into anything and everything cool, as I said. Like, they loved Joe Ely. They thought Stevie Ray great, but not good for their opening act. So and Stevie Ray later had said that like he'd never had people act that way. He'd never had people spit on him before and throw things. So after the show, I was backstage and their manager said, "Hey, Alice, what are you doing tomorrow night?" Because he'd actually kind of been sweet on me. And I said, "Oh, probably seeing the show." And he said, "How'd you like to open for them?" Okay. So for the Clash that next night. And mind you, we were a rockabilly band, which was also not a punk rock band. So,
oh no, did you have to duck?
so there were some people who were not really thrilled with us, but they were respectful because at least all the Austin people knew who we were. And we had credibility, you know, in that regard. And I mean, I'd been a little punk rock girly. I loved all the punk rock bands there, but quite honestly, I'm not a girl with a punk rock voice. I was much better for rockabilly and doing country stuff. So I have this vivid memory of this one punk in front who'd been fuck you the whole time, you know, just like big finger in my face. And I think I was singing Walking After Midnight at that point, the Patsy Cline, you know, gusher romantic song. And I just sang it right to him. As much love as I possibly could. And eventually his finger was just like a salute. I mean, it was awesome.
That's great.
I was thrilled. So I'm then backstage afterwards, and Don Letts, the videographer who went on to be in Big Audio Dynamite with Mick Jones, was saying, "Hey, that was great. Let's go ahead and we're filming the video here tonight, and let's go ahead and put you in it." So they had the two actors, the Hasidic Jew and the Arab Sheikh, out in the audience, and they're dancing and watching the show, as you remember from the video. So they positioned me right behind and between them. So you get these little flashes of my face as I'm dancing around. They were actually playing Clampdown at the time, which was like, one of my favorite songs of all time. So I'm actually just singing and jamming along with Working for the Clampdown, but that's okay. It was good enough. So those are my 0.005 seconds of fame that you can see my round, happy little face as I'm bouncing around right between the two. It's really fast. And so when I showed the video to anyone, it's like pause it real fast to see my sunny little face, but it was there.
Well, I want to get that for our Instagram. I'm going to see if I can capture it so I can at least even get like a little blur of your face.
I can send you a still for it.
Okay, do that.
So
do it.
So then there's a little bit of coda to this. After the show, great thanks from the Clash, who I hadn't even slept the night before because the whole time I'm going, I'm opening for the Clash tomorrow. I'm opening for the Clash tomorrow. I was energy, right? So after the show, great things from the band, which is just amazing because we're just a little rockabilly band and I'm just a little nobody. But my greatest pleasure was the next times that I saw Mick Jones. I reminded him who I was, said, "Oh yeah, my old rockabilly band, Trouble Boys, had opened for you." And his comment each time, "Oh yeah, you replaced Stevie Ray Vaughan. You were better than him." Now, mind you, I don't harbor any illusions that I'm better than Stevie Ray, but he said I was. And it was true. We were more fitting for that crowd than Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, on that particular night. So I consider that the greatest part, that Mick Jones said I was better than Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Alice, I would have T-shirts printed that said Mick Jones said I was better than Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I would wear it every day. And I love Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I would still.
Yes.
I think I would figure out a way to tell it as like two separate stories. Like, do you remember the time that I filled in for Stevie Ray Vaughan and the time I opened for the Clash?
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible, just like duo story. I replaced Stevie Ray in Texas, opening for the Clash.
So you didn't even know that part. You just knew I met them. You didn't
I just knew that you were in the video. Scotty told me years ago that you were in the video. I was like, I don't believe that. We brought it up on YouTube late one night at the bar we were working at. It's like, he's proof. Like, there's Alice right there. Like, holy crap, it is.
Oh gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, I watched the video before we did this, and that I know that clip, and everything goes by so fast, and I was like, oh god, oh god, oh god, where is she?
Hey, see that little, yep, you recognize my little round happy face.
Oh,
Yep,
that's exciting.
that was my thank you. So I think we were paid $200 to open
Yeah.
total. But hey, the stories are so much worth any amount of money that they could have given me.
Oh, for sure.
No kidding. I would have. Well, I wouldn't know that at the time, but I would have liked to have kept that $200. Like, this is it. It's framed up. It's on the wall.
Yep. As comedians, we do so much work for free. I would have just done that for free.
And I'm sure any of us would have, but I was a professional that night.
Very nice. What a great story.
It was a fun one. So it's fun for my students. I teach a history of rock class during interim term at my school. And when we get to kind of early punk rock stuff, I'll play the video and I'll just tell about how they were filming this in Austin. And then I'll kind of stand to the side and I'll say, and if you watch really carefully, right there, Spanish teacher from school here. Wait, what? Wait, what was that? Oh my God, they are completely stunned, and they hold me in a whole new light of maybe she is actually cool instead of just this mean teacher who makes us do the regular verbs.
Well, if they met you at Layla where I met you, they would know that you were cool.
I hate how you have to prove it to young people that you were cool.
I mean, and I know I'm the biggest geek in the universe, so it's just kind of funny for them. But it's like, oh, wait, so maybe my definition of geek is.
Well, my cool Overton window can expand a little bit.
Yes.
Well, thanks for coming on and telling us that story. I didn't even know the half of it. I didn't know you opened for the Clash.
Yeah.
Right. Is there any video footage of that? Did anyone take video? Do you have that memory?
No, I don't. If anyone did, I don't have it. Yeah. I've never known of its existence. There's other video out there which maybe I don't want out there.
Yeah.
Really, my whole memory is just being on the stage and looking out at these teams of people where I'd been standing the night before, and all of a sudden I'm looking out at them, which was because that's the whole punk rock aesthetic. It's like, we're all in this together. We all do it. It's not a matter of rock stars. It's not supposed to be rock stars. Eventually they grew to be rock stars, but it was supposed to be screw the rock stars, pick up a guitar, play, because this is where your heart is, this is what you're mad about, this is what you love, this is what you want to tear down, whatever. Yep. I didn't really want to tear anything down. I had a pretty great life, but I felt like, okay, I have as much a right to be on the stage as anybody else because we're all in this together. Yeah. And that is shooting the bird at me the whole time. That's so punk rock. I love how he left it up, but it became a term of endearment.
Well, thank you, Alice. We salute you too, but like with a proper wave and a proper hug.
There you go. Yeah. I enjoyed this.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, that was great. Let me go ahead and do some business. Special thank you to Chuck Savage and Eddie Hawkins for our amazing intro music, which is Rock the Casbah by The Clash. Thank you so much. And to Sara Wessling for the Guilty Pleasures vocals. If you would like to support the podcast, you can join our Patreon for $5 a month at patreon.com/rockthecashbar. With that $5, you'll get some cool swag and the chance to vote on every other song that we cover. One week we pick a song, like this week, the Patreon members picked one, and then next week we're going to pick a song. So we'll go back and forth. We have a Spotify playlist of all the songs we cover, including the Guilty Pleasure songs. It's searchable on Spotify, or you can find the direct link on our website, rockthecashbarpodcast.com. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. New episodes every Thursday. If you have a misheard song lyric you'd like us to read on the podcast, email us at rockthecashbarpodcast@gmail.com. Tweet us, Facebook message us, find us on all the things, and just let us know. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next Thursday.
And after all this, won't you give us a smile?
Hi, my name is Charlie. London calling in the faraway town.
1, 2, 3.